Hello guys, my name's Ella. I'll start off my little story by saying that I'm using fake names that I made up in my mind. I come from a wealthy family and so does my husband. In the story, I have a feeling that this might get recognized, and trust me, I have had enough people coming up to me wanting to know all the juicy gossip. I don't want a repeat of that, so I will refer to myself as Ella and my husband as Ken. Ken and I got married after college because we were in love. We also belonged to the same social standing, so it wasn't a problem for us to get married. Ken managed his father's business while I was a stay-at-home wife. I really won't tell you lies by saying that my married life was horrible. Well, with its small ups and downs, it was actually pretty good. We were married blissfully for 3 years before everything went to hell. I noticed that Ken was starting to withdraw a little from me. When I asked about it, he told me that it was work stress. So like a good wife, I took extra care of him to ease his stress. Who knew that Ken had been planning to do something horrible to me? I didn't have a clue of what was about to happen to me in my marriage. This all started when my husband made a very weird declaration. When I married him, I knew that he came from a wealthy family and inherited a lot of assets after his father passed away. Plus, he was all set to inherit more wealth from his mother. I also knew that he was extremely possessive over his assets and didn't want to part with them. Imagine my surprise when he sat me down and told me this. Ella, I've been thinking about things for a while. You know that I have over 15 properties in several counties. Yes, you told me about it in the past. What's the matter? So I was thinking about transferring the properties to you, all of them. What? But why would you do that? They are your assets. You don't need to give me anything. Look, I know they're my assets, but we are married now, so you should have some of it too. I already work a good job and don't need the surplus income anyway. Consider the rent money from these properties to be your allowance. I'm still unsure why you're doing this. Aren't you scared that you will lose ownership of your inheritance? Actually, part of the reason is taxes. Since you don't work, you'll be paying less taxes after collecting rent. My job and these properties are making me lose a lot of money in taxes, so this is the best way to avoid that. I was extremely confused and skeptical about Ken's decision. This didn't seem like a good idea to me at all. I mean, his reasons were legit, but I found it hard to believe that he would just give me his assets for free. I was feeling a little suspicious of this entire thing. Mostly I chalked it up to a prank and just went with what Ken said. After all, I couldn't stop him from signing his properties to me. I really did think that he was joking or pranking me. I was not prepared for my husband to call his best friend, SAEF, to our house the next day. Let me tell you about SEF. He's actually a lawyer who specializes in property laws. He has been my husband's best friend since kindergarten. At first, I thought that he was in on this prank. Then I saw that they were both serious. They sat me down and said, "So I take it that Ken has told you about his decision. He plans to transfer the house and 15 other properties of his to your name." Come on, guys. Is this a prank or something? We are not seriously doing this. This is not a prank or a joke, Ella. I did tell you my reasoning for transferring the properties to you. I intend to follow through with my decision, and that's why I'm here. Ella, I have prepared all the papers so that you know what's going on. Ken is a good husband and doesn't want to keep you in the dark. That's right. I want you to know everything, Ella. You do have to know your assets so that you can collect their rent on time. CF has already prepared all the documents. I was still pretty much in shock at this whole thing. At this point, both of them had convinced me that they meant business. I did read through the documents and found them pretty legit. Yes, I did have some knowledge of laws. I gave the papers back to SEF and saw that Ken swiftly put his signature on it. I really didn't know what to think. I was honored that Ken trusted me so much and was touched by his love for me. I quickly went to the kitchen to make coffee for all of us. When I was returning to the living room, this is the conversation I heard between Ken and SEF. God, I really didn't think Ella would be so stupid. I mean, I know she's dumb, but not that dumb. How the hell did she think that I would just give her my properties? You should be happy about this. Ella's stupidity made it easy for us to fool her. No one else would buy your excuse in any way. That is true, Seth. Thank God I married a dumb witch. It was easy to convince her that I gave her my properties. I will leave soon, and after 5 months I'll be back to sue her. I bet her parents will get involved, and I will end up getting a seamless divorce. Yeah, after you get that divorce, you'll be able to marry the girl of your dreams. See, I gave you the right idea to make Ella seem like a fraud. This way you'll be able to avoid paying alimony. We live in an at-fault state after all. The case won't even go to court. CEF, I can bet you $1,000 that Ella's parents will give me money and beg me to withdraw the case. Having a fraud case on their daughter will be bad for their image. They will agree to all divorce conditions to save face. And Mom also won't be mad at me for divorcing Ella. We did come up with a great plan, you know. Just that you have to be careful. Don't let Ella find out that you are having an affair. You were leaving to see her after all. Don't worry about that, Seth. I'm not a new player. I will tell Ella that I have a business trip coming, and then I will ghost her for 5 months. Then I will make up some excuses. Ken and Seth kept laughing about their plans while I remained frozen in my spot. I heard every word they said and knew the truth of the situation. My hands were shaking, so I quickly returned to the kitchen to compose myself. I had tears in my eyes, and I didn't know what to think anymore. My own husband was cheating on me and planning to trap me in his schemes. No, he didn't love me at all. He didn't trust me blindly. All this was a trap to make me look bad and give him a smooth outlet to divorce me. Guys, I can't tell you how hard it was for me to hold myself together at that point. Still, I didn't want them to see how broken I was. I actually put on a poker face and gave Seth and Ken their coffee. Then I faked a headache and went to my room. I immediately called my mother-in-law to tell her about what was going on. She was a lady of morals and ethics, and that's why Ken was scared about pissing her off. I called Daisy, my mother-in-law, and told her everything. I was literally sobbing while recounting all that happened. Daisy listened to me patiently and then said, "My son has crossed all limits today. After he married you, I thought that he had finally grown some sense. Now I see that I completely failed to raise him right. He is an abomination to me. His father would be rolling in his grave right now. Daisy, what do I do now? I want to confront him and destroy everything around me, but I know that this will be a stupid idea." "Of course it will be a stupid idea, Ella. You don't really have concrete proof of anything right now. If you confront him now, he will manage to clear any evidence of his affair. Then he might paint you out to be crazy." "That is true, Daisy. It did cross my mind. Trust me, I don't want to stay one more moment in this house anymore. I'm disgusted by Ken. I'm not sad anymore. I'm just super angry." "That's good, Ella. You need to be more angry than sad. My imbecile son has played you really bad. You can't let him get away with it." "I won't let him get away with this, Daisy. I might be soft-hearted, but I can be vengeful when necessary. I do have a plan, Daisy. It just came to my mind. I'll tell you once I compose myself a little better." Daisy encouraged me to make a plan for revenge. God, I absolutely love this woman. She promised to support me no matter what. I was a little relieved to know that at least someone was on my side. I also informed my own parents to prepare them for what was about to come. They were shocked and super angry as well. While all this was going on, Ken came into our room and said, "Ella, aren't you happy that I transferred my properties to you, see? I love and trust you so much. I'm happy, Ken. I guess it showed me how much you actually love me. I needed to know that. I am glad to know that, Ella. So I have to fly out for some business tomorrow. I have come to tell you about that. I'll be at a ton of meetings and stuff, so you don't have to worry when you don't hear back from me. You won't call at all. How long will you be gone? I'm not sure. I'll try to call, but I can't promise anything. This is an important business trip. I don't want to tell anyone anything until the deals are finalized, so don't tell Mom about this. I want to surprise her." I knew why Ken didn't want me to tell his mother, and I also knew why he didn't give me many details of the trip. In the past, I would have been worried about not knowing everything, but now I don't care anymore. I knew that he was going on vacation with his mistress, and there was no business trip. Ken could try and fool me as much as he wanted. I already knew his plans. I wished him well and went back to my work. This time, I called a private investigating agency to follow my husband and collect proof of his affair. I also accessed the CCTV footage of our living room to record the conversation Ken and Seth had that day. Yes, we have high-quality cameras and full audio recordings as well. Ken didn't remember that I could easily access footage and save it. He thought that I wouldn't suspect anything, and by the time I find something fishy, the recordings will be automatically deleted. He had no idea how wrong he was. The next morning, Ken left after saying his usual goodbyes. He did keep in touch for a few days before just disappearing completely. No one could get in contact with him, so he had essentially gone missing. My private investigator later informed me that he was vacationing in another country with his affair partner and was using a different phone number there. He was actually in freaking Europe having the time of his life and spending our money on another woman. I was fuming. I showed Daisy all the proof, and together we knew what to do. As promised, Ken didn't come back for 5 freaking months. He went on a vacation with his mistress and then was living with her in a different state. He actually bought her a house there, and they were presenting themselves as a happy couple. The more pictures I saw, the angrier I got. All my love for Ken had drained away. Meanwhile, I continued to collect rent money from the properties he signed over to me. They were a bunch of office spaces, so the income was good. As instructed by Ken, I went to all those properties and told them to send me the rent money. They didn't question it since Ken had informed them about a change. I was happy getting an extra income while plotting revenge against my horrible husband. When 5 months were up, he returned fully prepared with court papers and all. Guys, this man didn't even have the guts to come back home. He sent his stupid friend to come and talk to me. I got an email that I was getting sued by Ken for wrongfully taking rent payments for his client. I didn't reply to it and just informed my mother-in-law about it. That day, Daisy called me to her house along with Ken to talk. I went to Daisy's place and saw them waiting for me. As soon as I walked in, Ken got up from his seat with an angry expression and said, "What are you doing here, Ella? How dare you show me your face after you cheated me out of?" Sit down, Ken. Why are you making a fuss? Let's talk about this calmly, Mom. How can you take her side? She's a thief. I already told you what she has done. She needs to be in jail, and I have already sued her. I know you sued me, Ken. I got the legal notice in my mail yesterday. Why didn't you come home and confront me? Why hide from me, Ken? I didn't come home because I don't want to see your face anymore. You betrayed me, Ella. This is horrible. Oh, so you didn't come home because I took your rent money? But isn't that what you asked me to do? What nonsense, Ella. Why would I ever ask you to do that? I never said anything you didn't. Well, let's rewind a little. So you were telling me that you didn't tell me about transferring your properties to me before you left for your little vacation all around the world, Ken. Ken looked a little flustered when I mentioned that I wasn't supposed to know about the trip with his mistress. After all, so he was confused about how I got to know about it. Since Daisy was present and listening intently, Ken was trying hard to keep his expressions neutral and not freak out. I never said those things, Ella. And what vacation? I was gone for work. You don't recall anything. Well, then let me make things easier for you to remember. Remember how you and Seth showed me papers that you would let me get your properties, then you left for work abroad. Don't drag Seth into this, Ella. He didn't do anything. You're making up stories. I don't even care, actually. Once you're in court, we will see what happens." "You want me to go to court, Ken?" "Well, I don't think that will happen." "What do you mean, Ella?" Ken seemed to be a little confused and even scared of what I was going to say. I think he was getting onto the fact that maybe I knew something. Daisy was also not looking very pleased, and the atmosphere was tense. So I smiled a little and said, "Thank you for the properties, Ken, but I knew all about your plan. I knew that you were trying to trick me so that you could divorce me for financial fraud." "What? No. Why would I do that? This makes no sense. I also know why you did it, Ken. I believe it's because you want to marry your mistress who accompanied you on your 5-month trip around the world." Ken now looked absolutely dumbstruck at my revelation. He looked at me and Daisy, trying to gauge our reactions. He knew that he had been caught. Still, this idiot tried to defend himself and said, "These are all lies. You're just mad that your scam was caught. Don't make up lies about me, Ella. This is insane. Are these really lies, Ken?" "Mom, what do you mean?" "Of course, these are lies. I would never do something like this." "Oh, really, Ken? Is she lying or are you?" "My mother-in-law is a champion." She straightaway called Ken's bull and didn't beat around the bush. She had already seen all the proof and was exceptionally mad at her son. Meanwhile, her son was now shaking and stuttering. He said, "No, Mom, I didn't do anything." "Why would you say that?" "Shut up, Ken." "I know, and I have seen all the proof of your nasty plan." "That's right, Ken. I showed her the CCTV footage of our home where you and Seth had been laughing about your plan against me. We also know that you had an affair and took her on a grand trip in these past 5 months. We hired a private investigator and found out. We have all the proof we need." Ken continued to shake and his eyes went wide when we told him how we knew about his plan. The fact that we had so much evidence against him was something he had never predicted. He was super scared and kept shaking his head, trying to form a reply. It was funny to see him so scared. What made it satisfying was the fact that he had planned for me to react this way. This man was a monster. I said, "What happened?" "Ken, Cat got your tongue." I'm sorry." "Just enough, Ken. I don't want any more lies coming out of your mouth. You have crossed all limits of being a horrible human." "I'm sorry, Mom. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I just made a mistake." Calling this a mistake would be an understatement, Ken. I can't even look at you right now. Not only did you have an affair, but you also tried to scam your own wife. This is just nasty. Mom, I'm sorry. Ella, I'm so sorry. I will take back the legal notice and I will end my affair. This was all a stupid mistake." "This wasn't a stupid mistake, Ken. You meticulously planned this to trap me. There will be consequences for you now." Ken absolutely freaked out and started to beg for forgiveness. He knew that his mother was super angry, and she had a lot of power over his future and finances. So Ken was really starting to panic about what we would do to him. Now he was right to be afraid because we did have some grand plans in our minds. Daisy said, "Oh, Ella." "Oh, Ella is right about that, Ken. We do have some severe consequences for you. I'm actually thinking about disowning you completely and helping Ella take you to court." No, please don't do this, Ella. Please. Let's talk and figure out a solution. I'm telling you I will withdraw the case. I will also end my affair. I'm not happy with that, Ken. I need more. I need you to transfer your $115 properties to me for real. Then I will think about it. Ken more than agreed to do that and left hurriedly. I gave him time because I had more revenge planned for him. I sat there and laughed with Daisy, talking about our grand plan about Ken. He had no idea what we were going to do to him. I will tell you what happened next in a little detail. Ken made Seth actually file fresh papers for the property transfer. He also withdrew the case he had against me. From what my private investigator told me, he seemed to have broken up with his mistress, who then threw a fit and told everyone about it. It was just glorious because it came right after the property transfer was finalized. Once I made sure that the properties were really in my name, I served Ken's divorce papers. He was shocked because he wasn't expecting them at all. He thought that all would be well if he tried to backtrack and undo his wrongs. Sad for him, the damage was done. Ken tried to fight me for the divorce, but relented when I told him that I had proof of his affair. He had nothing in his hands anymore. Along with getting his 15 properties, I also got a huge chunk of his savings and fat alimony from the divorce settlements. Daisy made him comply with everything by threatening to disown him, so Ken had no option but to comply. In the end, he ended up getting divorced and Daisy cut his inheritance in half. Anyway, she was a good mother-in-law and wanted to punish her son for what he did to me. Ken is now living alone since I got our house as well. What can I say? I got a better lawyer than him and had too much evidence against him. So I happily came out of the marriage while getting a lot of money and assets, while Ken lost almost everything in one go. Ken is still pretty upset about the whole thing and has a strained relationship with his family. His friendship with Seth is also coming to an end since everyone knows he helped my ex-husband with his dirty plan. Seth is also facing a lot of backlash, and his office gave him a warning for malpractice. Ken has become extremely alone and is trying his best to cope. He lost a lot of weight and doesn't look happy anymore. He tried to fool around and mess with me, but he got the short end of the stick in return. I hope he learned his lesson and will never try to do this again.
He's working late again. Dear Margaret, my mother-in-law said sweetly over the phone. You know how demanding his clients are. I looked at the security camera feed on my laptop. My husband, David's car, was parked outside a fancy apartment building across town. Of course, Margaret. Thanks for telling me. My name is Olivia. I'm 34, and I'm watching my 10-year marriage fall apart, piece by piece. The worst part isn't just that David is cheating, it's that his whole family, especially his mother, is helping him lie about it. You should try to understand, Margaret went on, her voice full of fake sympathy. Running a law firm is stressful. Sometimes he needs relief. I muted the call and laughed bitterly. Relief? Was that what they were calling his 26-year-old paralegal now? I unmuted. You're right, Margaret. I'm sure David is very stressed. On the screen, I saw the young woman get into his car. Right on time. That's the spirit, dear. Just be patient. He always comes home, doesn't he? Yes, he did. Smelling like expensive perfume we couldn't afford on just his salary. I glanced at my second screen, spreadsheets of every suspicious transaction, every late-night meeting, every lie. I appreciate your concern, Margaret, but I have to go. Work is calling. I hung up before she could reply. My eyes stayed on the screen as David's car drove away. 3 months ago, I would have cried. 3 months ago, I still believed his excuses. But that was before I found a marriage registration form for Thailand in his briefcase. Before I learned he planned to marry his mistress without divorcing me or splitting our assets. My phone buzzed. A message from my private investigator. Meeting confirmed, full proof collected. I smiled. David had no idea about the hidden camera in his office. The one that caught him telling his mistress just yesterday. Once we're married in Thailand, Olivia won't know anything. The house, the firm's assets, they'll all stay mine. My laptop dinged, an email from our accountant confirming the shady transactions I had flagged. David thought he was being sneaky, moving money into a secret account. He didn't realize I had been tracking every dollar for months. That evening, Margaret called again, her voice smug. David just called me. He's closing a huge case tonight. Isn't it wonderful how hard he works? I pulled up a hotel receipt on my screen, a luxury suite booked under his company card. Yes, Margaret. Really wonderful. You know, Olivia, she hesitated, pretending to care. If you put more effort into your looks, maybe you wouldn't work such long hours. I thought about my designer clothes, my daily gym sessions, my successful career. None of it mattered to Margaret. To her, I would never be good enough for her son. Maybe you're right, I said, keeping my voice steady. I should probably focus more on myself. She didn't catch the hidden meaning in my words. She never did. Later that night, I got a text from David's sister, Emma. "Hey Liv, we need to talk. It's about David." I called her immediately. Emma was different from the rest of the family, less willing to lie. "I can't stay quiet anymore," she blurted out. "David's planning something awful. He and Mom, they're hiding money. He's marrying that girl in Thailand next month. Since there's no legal divorce or asset split, they think you'll get nothing." I leaned back, sipping my coffee. "I know, Emma." "You know," she sounded shocked. "I've known for months. I'm gathering proof. Will you make a statement about what you've seen?" Silence. Then, yes. "What they're doing is wrong, Liv. I'll help." After the call, I sat in the dark, thinking about all the lies David and his family had told. They thought they were smart. They had no idea I was ahead of them. My phone buzzed again. Margaret, probably with another excuse. I ignored it. Soon, they'd all realize just how badly they had underestimated me. The front door opened. David walked in, trying to be quiet. I cleared my screens and put on my usual act. "Working late again." I called out. He stopped in the doorway, loosening his tie, flashing a guilty smile. "Big case. You know how it is." I smiled back. "Of course. Your mother called to tell me." His shoulders relaxed. Good old Margaret, always covering for him. If only they knew what was coming. Everything changed 3 weeks later, when Margaret made her first mistake. I was reviewing security footage in my office when she called, her voice unusually agitated. "Olivia, dear, I need you to sign some papers for the firm." "Just some routine documents. I can bring them by today." I smiled, knowing exactly what those routine documents were. My PI had already obtained copies, transfer of ownership forms that would remove my name from our joint properties. All part of David's careful plan to leave me with nothing. "Of course, Margaret. I'm working from home today. Stop by any time." She arrived an hour later, clutching a manila envelope and wearing her fakest smile. I'd set up a hidden camera in the living room, ready to capture everything. "These just need your signature," she said, spreading the papers on the coffee table. "David mentioned you've been so busy lately, he didn't want to bother you with paperwork." I picked up the first document, pretending to read it carefully. How thoughtful of him. "And you bringing these by yourself." "Well, you know how it is. Family helping family." She patted my hand condescendingly. I pulled out my phone and started recording. "Before I sign, Margaret, could you explain exactly what these documents are for?" She shifted uncomfortably. "Just routine property transfers, dear. Nothing to worry about." "Nothing to worry about?" I met her eyes steadily. "Like David's upcoming trip to Thailand?" "Nothing to worry about there either." The color drained from her face. I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my laptop and turned it toward her. On the screen was a video of David and his mistress in his office, discussing their marriage plans. Margaret's hands began to shake. "How did you?" "I know everything, Margaret. The affair, the hidden assets, the plans for a secret marriage. I have proof of all of it." I started playing another video, this one of Margaret herself, helping David move money between accounts. "You've been spying on us?" Her voice rose with indignation. "No, Margaret. I've been protecting myself. Did you really think I was that stupid, that naive?" She stood up abruptly, gathering the papers. "You'll regret this. David will never forgive you for going behind his back." I laughed, actually laughed. "Like he went behind mine? Like you helped him do it? Does Emma know about all of this too?" At the mention of Emma, Margaret froze. "Leave your sister-in-law out of this." "Too late. She came to me weeks ago, told me everything. She's willing to testify about what you and David planned." Margaret sank back onto the couch, her carefully maintained facade crumbling. "He's my son. I was protecting him." "No, you were helping him commit fraud. Would you like to see the evidence I've gathered? The bank records? The hotel receipts? The property transfer documents you tried to hide?" Tears began to form in her eyes, but I felt no sympathy. This woman had spent years undermining me, helping her son deceive me, all while pretending to be a caring mother-in-law. "What do you want?" she whispered. "I want you to call David. Right now. Tell him to come home immediately." Her hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. I listened as she made the call, her voice breaking as she told him it was an emergency. Within 20 minutes, I heard his car in driveway. David burst through the door, then stopped short at the scene before him. His mother in tears, me calmly sitting with a laptop full of evidence. "What's going on?" he demanded. "Show him," Margaret said quietly. I turned the laptop toward him and started playing the videos, one after another, irrefutable proof of his deception. His face went from anger to shock to fear. "How long have you known?" he finally asked. "Long enough to document everything. The affair, the fraud, the plans for Thailand. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out?" He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing. Now it just seemed pathetic. "Olivia, we can talk about this." "No, David, we can't. But your lawyer can talk to mine." I handed him a business card. "Everything goes through them now." "You'll ruin him," Margaret protested weakly. "No, Margaret. You and David did that yourselves. I just gathered the evidence." David started pacing, his legal mind probably racing through scenarios. "The firm will survive, but not with you at the helm. The partners might be interested in knowing how you've been mishandling client funds to finance your affair." His face went pale. "You wouldn't. Try me." I stood up, gathering my laptop. "I've arranged for a hotel room. You can stay here tonight, pack your things. But tomorrow, I want you gone." Margaret stood too, her earlier confidence replaced by defeat. "All this time we thought. You thought I was weak, naive, easy to manipulate." I smiled. "That was your first mistake." The aftermath unfolded exactly as I planned. 2 days after the confrontation, Margaret called me in tears. "David's mistress left him," she sobbed. "She said she didn't sign up for all this drama. How could you do this to him?" I sat in my office, reviewing the latest documents from my lawyer. "I didn't do anything to him, Margaret. He did this to himself. You helped. He's staying with me now," she continued. "He's devastated. The partners are reviewing his position at the firm. Because of the evidence I sent them about his misuse of client funds, I kept my voice calm. That was his choice, too." She was quiet for a moment. "I never thought it would end like this." "No, you thought it would end with me penniless and alone while your son started a new life. How's that working out?" The line went dead. Emma came to see me the next day, bringing coffee and a hesitant smile. "The family's in chaos," she said, settling onto my couch. "Mom's beside herself. David's career is imploding, and his mistress is apparently already dating someone else." "And how are you?" I asked, genuinely curious. She'd taken a big risk coming forward. "Relieved, actually." She sipped her coffee. "I've spent years watching them manipulate people, always getting away with it. It was exhausting." I nodded, understanding completely. "Thank you, Emma. Your statement to the lawyers made a difference." I just told the truth. Finally, she paused. "Mom's not speaking to me now. Give her time. She's learning actions have consequences." The divorce proceedings moved quickly. David, facing potential disbarment and criminal charges for financial misconduct, agreed to my terms without argument. The prenup he tried to circumvent with his Thailand scheme now worked against him. I got the house, half the firm's value, and a clear conscience. His mistress, the young paralegal, found a new job at a different firm. Last I heard, she was dating one of the partners there. David's careful plans had crumbled so completely, it was almost sad. Almost. Margaret tried to salvage things one last time, showing up at my door unannounced. "We're still family," she pleaded. "Can't we just forget all this unpleasantness?" I looked at the woman who had enabled her son's worst behaviors, who had helped him try to destroy me, who had spent years undermining my marriage while pretending to support it. "No, Margaret, we're not family. We never really were. You made sure of that." "I was protecting my son. You were protecting his lies. There's a difference." I started to close the door, then paused. "You know what the saddest part is? If you'd raised him to be honest, to face consequences, he might not be in this situation now." 6 months later, I sat in my newly redecorated living room with Emma, sharing a bottle of wine and catching up. David had taken a job at a small firm in another state, his reputation in tatters. Margaret had thrown herself into church activities, telling anyone who would listen about her ungrateful former daughter-in-law who had destroyed her family. "Mom still doesn't get it," Emma said, shaking her head. "She actually asked me yesterday if I thought you'd consider dropping the charges if David apologized." I couldn't help but laugh. Some people never learn. But some do. Emma raised her glass. "To new beginnings." And to facing consequences, I added, clinking my glass against hers. My phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. David's met someone new. A nice girl who understands family loyalty. I hope you're happy with what you've done. I showed it to Emma, who rolled her eyes. Want to tell her about the background check you ran on the nice girl who's actually married? No, I smiled, deleting the message. Let them figure it out themselves this time. Looking around my peaceful home, I felt nothing but relief. The evidence I'd gathered was safely stored away, a reminder that I wasn't the naive wife they thought I was. The firm was thriving under new leadership, my career was soaring, and I had kept the one worthwhile relationship from my marriage, my friendship with Emma. You know, Emma said thoughtfully, you taught me something important through all this. Standing up for yourself doesn't make you the bad guy. Sometimes it makes you the hero of your own story. I thought about the months of careful planning, the evidence gathering, the quiet strength it took to wait for the right moment. I thought about Margaret's tears, David's shocked face, and the collapse of their carefully constructed lies. Not the hero, I corrected her. Just someone who finally stopped accepting the role of victim. The sun was setting outside, casting a warm glow through windows that were finally truly mine. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting free. Where are the papers? Show us the marriage certificate. Amanda's voice sliced through the warmth of our Christmas dinner, shattering the cheerful atmosphere. She stood at the head of the table, manicured nails digging into the polished mahogany surface, her eyes glinting with triumph. I bet you can't, because they don't exist. The room fell into a stunned silence. I set my fork down carefully, dabbing my napkin against my lips as 20 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Beside me, my husband, Michael, stiffened, his face paling. Across the table, my mother-in-law, Margaret, wore that thin, knowing smile, the one I'd come to despise over the last 5 years. Amanda, that's enough, Michael began, but she waved him off. No, Michael, we've all had enough. 5 years of watching her pretend to be part of this family. 5 years of lies. Show us the proof, Diana. Prove you're really married to my brother. I met her gaze steadily, then let my eyes sweep the room. Some of the family members looked horrified. Others, like Margaret, barely concealed their anticipation. I knew this moment had been orchestrated, the perfect scene set to humiliate me in front of everyone. Well, Amanda pressed, arms folded. We're waiting. I exhaled softly, then reached for my phone, my movements deliberate. The silence deepened as I scrolled through my contacts and tapped a number. Amanda's smirk faltered as I placed the call on speaker. Diana, came the smooth, familiar voice of James Peterson. I wasn't expecting a call from you on Christmas Day. I'm sorry to interrupt your holiday, James, I said, my voice even. But we have an interesting situation here. My sister-in-law seems to believe that my marriage to Michael doesn't legally exist. A beat of silence. Then a low chuckle. Ah, so they finally made their move. Margaret's smile stiffened. Amanda's smugness evaporated. Who is that? Amanda snapped. James Peterson, he replied, his voice like steel wrapped in velvet. Lead partner at Peterson and Associates. Diana's personal attorney for the last 6 years. And I must say, this is quite the development, though not entirely unexpected. Michael turned to me, his brow furrowed. I kept my focus on Amanda. James, would you mind confirming something for my sister-in-law? I asked. She insists there's no legal record of my marriage to Michael. Certainly. The rustling of papers carried through the speaker. Marriage certificate filed and registered June 15th, 5 years ago. Joint accounts, property agreements, all documented and legally binding. Would you like me to email copies to the family? Amanda had gone ghostly pale. Across the table, Margaret gripped her water glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. That's impossible, Amanda sputtered. We checked the records. There was nothing. Ah, yes, James mused. Your little courthouse search last month. Interesting timing. We were, of course, notified. And you see, when there are concerns about tampering, we take precautions. Understanding dawned in Michael's eyes. He now realized why I'd insisted on handling our legal matters myself, why I'd been so meticulous. Margaret's voice, usually so controlled, wavered. Diana, what is the meaning of this? I met her gaze and smiled, the same cold, polite smile she had given me for years. It's quite simple, Margaret. I've known all along that you and Amanda were trying to erase my marriage. The misplaced documents, the rumors, the little suggestions to Michael about keeping assets separate just in case. I reached into my bag and placed a sealed envelope on the table. I documented everything, every attempt, every inquiry, every conveniently lost file. And now that you've finally shown your hand, I nudged the envelope toward her. I think it's time we had an honest conversation about respect and boundaries. Silence. Amanda stood frozen, her confidence shattered. Margaret eyed the envelope as if it were a snake poised to strike. Michael slid his hand into mine under the table, his grip firm, reassuring. James spoke again, his voice light but edged with something unmistakable. Oh, and before I go, I've prepared a complete file detailing every instance of interference with Diana and Michael's marriage records. Should anything unfortunate happen to any legal documents in the future, well, let's just say it would raise some very interesting legal questions. I ended the call with a polite, "Merry Christmas, James," before turning back to my stunned audience. "Now," I said, picking up my fork, "shall we continue with dinner? I believe dessert is about to be served." The days after Christmas dinner passed in an eerie quiet. No calls from Margaret. No passive-aggressive texts from Amanda. The family group chat, normally a steady stream of messages, photos, and updates, had gone silent. Even Michael seemed distant, lost in thought as he processed everything that had come to light. It wasn't until 3 nights later, as we sat together in the living room, that he finally voiced the question I'd been expecting. "How long have you known?" His voice was quiet, almost hesitant, about what they were trying to do. I closed my book, setting it aside before turning to face him. "Do you remember, 3 months after our wedding, when the courthouse called to verify our marriage license because the original had gone missing?" He frowned, nodding slowly. "Yeah, they said it was misfiled, right?" "No," I held his gaze. "Margaret convinced a clerk to help her check our records. The original disappeared during that check. If I hadn't already filed copies with James, it would have been gone for good." Michael exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair, a telltale sign of his distress. "Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me?" I asked gently. "Every time I tried to bring up your mother's behavior, you told me I was overreacting, that she just needed time to adjust." He flinched, guilt flickering across his face. "I should have listened. I never thought they'd go that far." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A message from Amanda. "We need to talk. Alone." I showed Michael the screen. His jaw tightened, but I placed a hand over his, reassuring. "It's time to clear the air. All of it." The next afternoon, I met Amanda at a small cafe downtown. She looked different, less polished, almost fragile without her usual armor of designer clothes and meticulously styled hair. She sat clutching her coffee cup like a lifeline, her nails tapping restlessly against the ceramic. "How did you know?" she asked the moment I sat down. "How long have you been collecting evidence?" I stirred my tea, my movements slow, measured. "Since before the wedding. The first time I overheard you and Margaret discussing how to protect the family assets from me, I knew I needed to be careful." "You were spying on us?" Her voice had an edge, but it lacked the bite it once held. "No, Amanda. I was protecting myself. There's a difference." I met her gaze. "The real question is, why? Why spend 5 years trying to invalidate my marriage?" She looked away, shoulders sagging. "Mom was convinced you were after Michael's inheritance. She said we needed a backup plan, a way to prove the marriage wasn't legal if you ever tried to take what wasn't yours. And you never questioned her. Never considered how this would affect your brother." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. She said she was protecting him. A shaky breath. "But yesterday, I found something in her study." She pulled a folder from her bag and slid it across the table. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. Bank statements, letters, legal notices, and then the truth. "She's been embezzling from the family trust," Amanda whispered. "The money she accused you of chasing. She's been stealing it herself. She needed someone to blame if it was ever discovered." A cold, sharp silence stretched between us as the final pieces fell into place. Margaret's iron grip on the family's finances, her relentless obsession with painting me as a gold digger, the desperate attempts to erase my marriage. It was never about protecting Michael, it was about protecting herself. "Does Michael know?" I asked. Amanda shook her head. I came to you first. I owe you that much. I studied her face, searching for deception. Instead, I found something unexpected: regret. Thank you for showing me this, I said finally, but you understand this can't stay buried. I know, she murmured. That's why I brought it to you. Mom, she has to be stopped. And I need to make things right. By the time I got home, my mind was racing. Margaret hadn't just tried to destroy my marriage. She had spent years stealing from her own children while setting me up as the perfect scapegoat. Michael was in his office, lost in paperwork. He looked up as I entered, eyes flicking to the folder in my hands. There's something you need to see, I said softly, and it's not going to be easy. For the next hour, we pored over the documents together. I held his hand as the betrayal unfolded before him, watching as anger, hurt, and disbelief flickered across his face. All this time, he whispered hoarsely. All this time she was accusing you of being after our money. She was the one stealing it. I squeezed his fingers, grounding him. I'm so sorry, Michael. He looked up at me, his blue eyes rimmed with red. No, I'm the one who's sorry. I should have defended you. I should have seen what they were doing. Instead, I let them push you to the outside while my own mother. His voice broke. I cupped his face in my hands, forcing him to meet my gaze. We'll handle this. Together. For the first time in days, he gave me a small, fragile smile. Together, he echoed, gripping my hand like it was the only thing keeping him afloat. As we sat there, surrounded by the remnants of Margaret's deception, I realized this wasn't the victory I had once imagined. It wasn't about proving I was right or about exposing their schemes. This was something deeper, more painful. But perhaps for the first time in years, it was real. The family meeting was set for Saturday morning at our house. Michael insisted on neutral ground, somewhere outside Margaret's domain, where her manipulations held no power. Amanda arrived first, clutching a fresh stack of documents she'd uncovered. Her face was pale, her fingers trembling slightly as she set the papers on the coffee table. We exchanged a brief glance, unspoken understanding passing between us. Today would change everything. Margaret arrived last. She hesitated for the briefest moment on the threshold, her usual confident stride faltering as she took in the sight of all of us waiting. Her mask slipped back into place just as quickly. What's this about? She demanded, her voice sharp with forced authority. Some sort of intervention. Michael stood, his grip tightening on the folder in his hands. He looked pale, but his voice was steady. Sit down, Mom. We need to talk about the family trust. The color drained from Margaret's face. She opened her mouth, no doubt ready with some excuse. But then Michael laid out the evidence. Bank statements, transfer records, forged signatures, a paper trail of betrayal stretching back years. Margaret tried to interrupt, her voice tight with indignation, but Amanda cut through her protests with a quiet, devastating certainty. We found everything, Mom. The offshore accounts, the gambling debts, all of it. You don't understand, Margaret protested, her carefully constructed composure beginning to crack. I was protecting our family's legacy. Michael's voice broke. By stealing from us. By trying to destroy my marriage to cover your tracks. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. I watched as the truth unraveled Margaret's world. Her schemes, her manipulations, all the careful planning, exposed in the harsh, unforgiving light of day. Michael took a breath, steadying himself before delivering the final blow. We've already spoken with the family lawyer. The trust will be restructured. You'll no longer have access to any accounts. Margaret surged to her feet, her voice rising with desperation. You can't do this to me. I'm your mother. For the first time, I spoke. Yes, I said quietly, you are. Which makes this betrayal even worse. Her eyes darted between us, searching for an ally. But there was no one left to save her. And in that moment, I felt no satisfaction, only sadness. For the years of damage, the relationships she had poisoned, the love she had squandered in pursuit of control. The weeks that followed brought irreversible change. Margaret faced legal consequences, though Michael and Amanda insisted on handling the matter privately to avoid public scandal. The trust was completely restructured, placed under transparent oversight with an equal distribution among the siblings. Amanda, for her part, threw herself into making amends, not just with me, but with everyone her mother had driven her to hurt. One evening, over coffee, she hesitated before speaking, her voice unsteady. I was a terrible sister to you, she admitted, her fingers twisting around her mug. I let Mom poison everything. I never once thought for myself. I reached across the table, squeezing her hand. We can't change the past, Amanda. But we can decide what comes next. She blinked back tears, nodding. Michael focused on rebuilding, both within himself and within the family company. He implemented new financial controls, ensuring no one could ever manipulate the trust again. One night, as we sat on our back porch, he stared out at the darkened sky, deep in thought. You know what's ironic? He murmured. Mom always claimed you were a threat to our family's stability, but you're the one who saved us from her destruction. I leaned my head against his shoulder, watching the stars. Sometimes the people who seem to threaten our world are actually the ones helping us see it more clearly. 6 months after that fateful Christmas dinner, we hosted another family gathering. The energy in the house was different this time, lighter, more genuine. Amanda arrived with her new boyfriend, who looked at her with an affection that made me smile. Michael's younger cousins played in the yard, their laughter drifting through the open windows. As I set the table, carefully placing the same china we had used that Christmas night, I reflected on how much had changed. The marriage certificate Margaret had fought so hard to erase still sat safely in our files. But it no longer felt like a shield I had to wield in defense. Now it was simply what it was always meant to be, a symbol of our commitment. Michael came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. What are you thinking about? I turned to face him, smiling softly. How sometimes the worst moments lead to the best changes. He nodded, pulling me closer. We're stronger now, aren't we? Yes, I said, because we chose to be. Looking around at our rebuilt family, I realized something. Victory doesn't always mean winning a battle. Sometimes it means healing the wounds that caused it in the first place. And sometimes the best revenge isn't vengeance at all. It's letting the truth shine so brightly that no one can ever hide in the shadows again.